Hi, this is Dennis Queen. I'm with some of my greatest heroes today from DAN, the Disabled People's Direct Action Network. And we're going to talk you through DAN history, what the organisation is, what we do, and what we did and why. I'm going to go next to Cara, if that's all right. Cara, would you say hello?
Hello, my name's Karen from Northampton, and I joined Dan after the telethon protest. I think at telethon a list was taken, and my name was on the list. So after that, I was a member of Dan.
And I'm hoping Sue can introduce herself next. Hi, Sue.
Hello, I'm Sue. I'm from Greenwich, and I was involved with Dan from the telethon actions right in the beginning and quite a way through the Dan years. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want me to start talking about?
We'll come back to the memories in a minute, if that's all right, Sue. And I'm going to ask who's going to say hi next for me. Hopefully Nigel. Hi, Nigel.
Hi, I am Nigel. I live in Peckham. I started my Dan action on telephone, like most people did here. It was the last demonstration I ever did without a wheelchair, and Sue told me off for not having my wheelchair with me. So
Nice
I
one.
never did a demonstration without a wheelchair again because I didn't want the rubber Sue on my back.
And next on my screen, I've got the wonderful, wonderful LGBT Dan icon, Kate, who I'm really excited is here because we've not been on a Dan protest together, but I feel like you led the way for me in lots of ways, Kate.
Because I'm an old one, aren't I?
Well, that's what I say now. I say I'm an old gay, darling, but like, you must be a year older than me, maybe, that's all.
Yeah, 72.
No.
That's bad, is it? And still.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, we still have to fight, and that's the problem.
Our last introduction at the moment, unless anyone else arrives, is the fabulous Carlo. How are you doing, Carlo? Do you want to say hi?
Hi, Dennis. Yeah, I'm Carlo, also from Northampton, trying desperately to get out. I'm a youth worker. I used to do a lot of youth work. I'm a proud independent advocate, and I'm an activist. And I joined Dan after the telethon, and I was part of the CAT as well. So campaign for accessible transport, training ourselves to buses, getting in the wrong position so that police would tell me to move, and then they tried to move me and came off worse because I ended up rolling back on them, so they didn't listen. So I was very proud to be part of Dan, and I still am, and long may it continue as far as I'm concerned. It's a shame in the sense that we absolutely have to do it, but it has to be done. We need our rights strengthened, and we need them back. They're being threatened on every turn.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. One of my earliest memories of a Dan thing stuck in my mind, and it was probably the Desperate Dan video, and one of the clips, I think, is probably Alan Holdsworth saying, "We're doing this because we have to." And I think that's always been a sort of answer that I've used so many times since myself.
Exactly.
It's so exciting though, because I think it looks like every one of you was at telethon except me, which I was already a bit envious. Now I'm like, because for me as a sort of an activist that didn't join the movement until I in the late 1990s, I joined and I was in my early 20s. That was the sort of historic protest that started it all. That as I know, Dan came out of, and I've seen so many pictures and things about it, and I love hearing about what happened. So I'm really excited because we've chosen this first part of our DigiFest presentation, which is what we are showing as part of how we've contributed to 50 years of disability rights work. We were going to begin by talking about some of our local donors in Manchester, which is where DigiFest is happening, that we've lost since. And I think, if I'm correct, the first person we were going to talk a little bit about was Ian Stanton, and a bit about that very first protest. And I think, if I've got this right, Kate and Sue are going to tell us some stuff about that.
You couldn't have listened to him play the guitar and sing without also getting to know him. He was one of the people that would be on stage but also be our mates as well. He never isolated himself and got a big head. He was always down to earth, just the same as the rest of us, you know. He never, well, in my opinion, never made himself different to the rest of us, you know, because he was one of our stars, if you like.
That's right, Kate, because I remember that, I think in the early days that Ian Stanton used to go to a day centre, and he wrote about it in his songs, of how demeaning and pointless that was. It was like warehousing people. But he was this great talent, and he wrote incredibly powerful songs, like anthems for our movement. And the telethon protest was like bringing people from disabled people's organisations all over the UK together. So people, goodness knows how they got there, but I think there was well over 1,000 disabled people at the protest in 1990 and 1992. And we, and part of it was setting up like a stage and a cabaret on the street outside the ITV television studios. And of course, Ian Stanton was pretty much one of the main stars of that show, and he'd written incredible songs like Tragic but Brave, and which brings back, whenever I hear that song, it brings back the memories of, it says that we were brandishing banners and pissing on pity.
Yeah.
And, you know, that we were proud, and that we just would not allow that demeaning programme to continue, and we did shut it down. We shut down Telethon because we recognised that what we needed was rights, not charity.
Going to the pictures, see the Late Late Show. You're told that you're a fire risk, so the wheelchair has to go. You're in your seat, you turn around, you wave your wheels goodbye. You don't need many guesses who's gonna be the first to fry. But if you try to argue, that's my legs you're taking away. You can guarantee there'll always be somebody there who'll say, got a chip on your shoulder, got a really bad attitude. Is it any wonder people treat you the way they do? You really should be grateful for all we do for you. We're a quiet little crip without a chip.
And rights, not charity, was the chant. Rights, not charity. Rights, not charity. It was amazingly powerful. You know, and piss on pity. You know, we used a lot of Ian's songs and pieces from his songs to sort of chant. It was wonderful. But no, Ian was just such a loving guy. I really got on well with him. He was a really nice man.
From what I hear from my research on this as well, some of the celebrities saw you as they were coming in and out. How did they react? Really, anyone, please feel free to come in on this, because I think you were all there. I've certainly seen some funny interviews with poor old Chris Tarrant.
I think Chris Tarrant had a rather sore foot after trying to get into the studio. But there were crowds of disabled people, and the celebrities were arriving in their limousines and push cars to try and get into the studio, because of course they're parasites, they're feeding off us. It looks good on them if they do their little charity turn. So they were really shocked and confused that we would be blocking their cars to stop them going. I remember the two characters from EastEnders, Ricky and Diane, brother and sisters, they were in a car that was in front of their car. I remember that, and blocking Chris Tarrant. There was other people as well. But I mean, I think Cara and Carlo would remember John Smith, one of the campaigners from Northampton, who was there, and he's usually, really quiet, but he managed to pick up the barricade, the great big metal barricade, and just throw it to one side, and we rushed to get to the doors because we were gonna storm the studios. So it was a good action.
Yeah, it was. I suppose eventually we did get more rights because of things like that. In them.
Yeah,
And
ain't
well,
that true?
do stuff now.
Yeah, unfortunately, our job has not ended yet, has it? I'm
No,
sad to say.
not at all, Dennis.
So I'm going to move over. I'm going to move back actually to Cara for a minute, just to say, Cara, do you want to say anything else about Brenda now we're in our sort of remembering section?
I remember singing and going around on their wheelchair or on a scooter singing "We Are the Wheelchair Warriors," quite loud and quite happy and empowering and everything like that. It empowered me.
I remember on quite a few occasions, including the Cardiff one, and in Whitehall, she used the full weight of her body and lie on the ground in front of the bus, and she would refuse to move. She made herself really heavy. And then if the police tried to move her, she would kind of feign a heart attack. So we knew she was faking it, because it would only happen when she was in front of the bus. Because the police were trying to drag her off, but she was,
Going to bring in Cara now. Cara.
Hello.
Hey, Cara. So we were talking a
Unmute.
little bit before about Stephen Woodgate, weren't we?
Yeah.
And you were going to share some memories.
Yeah, I have a lot of memories of talking with Stephen, and I remember that he was quite young, and we had quite a lot of. I had quite a lot of powerful discussions about how the disability is society and not your body, but we had quite a lot of discussions around the medical models. I don't really want to go into detail because it was quite personal for me and Stephen. But the other thing that I remember was that one of the protests that we were at, somebody arranged a stop off for a break at McDonald's, and at the time it was at the same time as the McLibel case. So I don't know if people are familiar with the McLibel case, where two of our supporters had taken McDonald's to court on their own, and actually historically won a case against McDonald's, and but because I supported the two people that were involved in the case, I didn't want to go into McDonald's, and so Steve was the only person who came out with me in solidarity with me, sitting outside McDonald's. Yeah, sitting outside McDonald's, because I didn't want to go in, because I understood how significant the McLibel case was against McDonald's, and that two people took it on their own, and they were the people that videoed also the Harrods thing at the end of the Desperate Dan video. It's their footage. So because I knew that they supported us, I didn't want to go to McDonald's, and I sat outside McDonald's on my own, or almost on my own. But Stephen came out and sat with me, and he understood why I didn't want to go in there. And I just thought that is one of my
That's a really nice memory of him sharing solidarity with you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so the last person we were going to mention, who's also local to the DigiFest, was Lorraine Grabwell. And I know Lorraine Grabwell was a dear friend of mine and taught me an awful lot when I first joined the movement, as she was so heavily involved in GMCDP, the Manchester Coalition of Disabled People. And me and Sue were talking a little bit before about how you saw Lorraine on some damn protests, and you also knew her already from BCODP. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, that's right. I remember meeting Lorraine Gradwell at BCODP conferences, because Lorraine, I believe, was representing Greater Manchester Coalition of Disabled People, and I was there representing Greenwich Association of Disabled People. And I remember being quite in awe of her knowledge and how she would come across. She had such a great way with people, and she was very kind, really lovely person, and her politics were excellent. So I felt like I learned a lot about the broader kind of Labour politics as well as disability type politics from Lorraine. She's pretty much like a guru type person to me, I would say. I wish I'd known her better, but what with me living in London and Lorraine being in Manchester, I didn't see her very often other than Dan Actions and BCODP. And I think on Dan Actions, she was very much somebody who was extremely articulate, able to get our arguments across and to be taken seriously and listened to by politicians. So she often bridged that gap, between the direct action and the negotiations with the powers that be to get the changes that we did.
In Manchester, DigiFest is part of our celebrations of our local MP, Alf Morris, who 50 years ago created what now sounds very old-fashioned, but at the time was groundbreaking, the Chronically Sick and Disabled Persons Act, and the 50 years of disability rights since then. So, which is why it's so important that Dan puts a piece in, because I feel, and I'm sure everyone here feels, that we made a really important contribution to fighting for rights during that time. Can any of you tell me about Dan fighting for civil rights? So would any of you like to say anything about the part we've taken in fighting for those?
Right at the beginning, our very first action was in Christchurch, where there was a by-election, and somebody called Rob Hayward was standing for election to be the local MP, but he had talked out the Civil Rights Bill And so because we were fighting for that bill, we decided that we would go down to his constituency and let all the local people know in Christchurch what he'd done, that he had not stood up for disabled people's rights at all. He'd actually done the opposite. So, we leafleted, we protested outside his constituency headquarters, we campaigned outside his house. And what you know, he did not get elected. So we made it clear that if there was anyone that was going to talk out our bill, the Alf Morris one, the Civil Rights Disabled Persons Bill, we were going to go to their constituency and give them a very, very hard time. What we did with the ones, Peter Bottomley and Elton as well, and other MPs, one in Southend. We did a march, a 50-mile march from the MP in Southend who talked out the bill all the way to Westminster. It took us 3 days for Dan to march from Southend. From Southend to Westminster. We were exhausted.
Because now we're getting this thing about guards on trains or not on trains in places like Bedford and Bedfordshire and unstaffed stations where it's practically impossible for disabled people to access trains, get on and off trains. So in Cardiff in 1995, there was a direct link because we stopped the trains, campaigning for accessible trains and transport. And I seem to recall it took them about 4 days to get the timetables and the schedules going. Again, because we'd messed it up, so effectively making some really good points. So again, I'm anxious to portray a really big link there because it's relevant to what's still happening now in some areas.
You mentioned the other day your children who are disabled don't realise how lucky they are in a way. When we got on a train, we went in the guard's van.
Yeah.
And the guard's van would have the windows open because the guard had to lean out and keep an eye on the train.
They were done as men and women, it mattered not. They were proud to be called Dan. I knew at that moment I needed to join that brave band, do my bit to build a society based on social justice for all, where equity, equality and fairness are foundations of that fairer, better society. I am proud to be part of their history, proud to be known as a bard for better lives. 30 years later I continue that battle and will do so until the war is won or I draw my last breath. We will never forget those who went before us, those determined Danners who were desperate Dan.